So what are the tools that you'll need? So it's not that much if you really think about it. You'll need, oops. Okay. On this part here is a muddler, and here's the jigger, and then here's a shaker. And the glassware I have like other slides for that. So this is a good starting point. If you don't have any of this, it's a good purchase to have. And then the reason why I separated this with space is because the rest, I think you probably have it in your kitchen. Some jars and bottles, because we'll be making a simple syrup, a pot, funnel in order to put the liquids into the jar, liquid measuring spoon, a dry measuring spoon, a cup, a measuring spoon, mixing spoon, a paring knife would be helpful when we're making garnishes. A coffee filter or a cheesecloth would be helpful as well, so that the sediments of, if you're using powder, would not get into the drinks. And of course, a citrus squeezer, but even that you don't really need, because if you could just squeeze the lemon or the lime, then that's fine. One thing that I do recommend people to purchase is a soda maker. Now, there are other soda makers in the market, but I like using this one because you just add a cartridge, and the amount of bubbles you could have in your water. So it uses tap, you could use tap water or what do you call this? Filtered water, and then it will put carbon in it. So this one is available on Amazon. So you just search for soda maker. And it was really helpful for me when I was making and experimenting with drinks, because then I don't have to go and buy soda, carbonated water. Okay. When it comes to glassware, picking out the right glassware is helpful in terms of how do you want your beverage to be presented. So when we talk about the 5 tastes, we also want to talk about the 5 senses. How does the drink look before the taste? How does the drink, when you hear the name, how does it affect you? And then, of course, what's the smell? And then the taste actually comes in. So when we talk about taste, the flavor is actually a combination of all of those 5 senses, how you're smelling it before you actually taste the drink itself. So the shots are small because, for example, if you're drinking like expensive alcohol, you only want like a small amount, so that's why it's a shot. Rocks is this glass right here, where you could put a big chunk of ice on it, so that's why it's on the rocks. On the other hand is this glass right here. It's somebody told me it was based on the shape of a breast, so that's why that shape was created. But I think it's also a great way to highlight sparkling drinks. So if you want to add your fizzies to it, whether it's kombucha or sparkling water, it just enhances that that beverage. And then the highball is the one that is your standard glass. Okay. Next. So this is where we come to the techniques of making your mocktails or cocktails. So once the plants have all of these molecules that have specific actions to it. how do you get the molecules out of the plant and into the liquid of choice, right? So there's definitely different ways of doing that. The herbal way is through infusion, decoction, making a vinegar or a glycerin. So an infusion, if you look at the plant and look at the parts of the plant, each part actually has a specific way of getting the molecules out. Otherwise, if you use the wrong extraction process, you're either going to get more than what you bargained for, or you're not going to get it, or you're not going to get the molecules out. So for example, infusion uses the leaves and the delicate flower. And this is just a steep of hot water for 5 to 7 minutes. So let me grab the hot water and we're going to infuse. I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to infuse butterfly pea into hot water. So let me grab those ingredients. Okay, so I have my little, well, it's not little, it's a mason jar. Got my hot water here. And I'm using butterfly pea because it is a beautiful color once it gets to extract. And so typically for a container this size, it's about a fourth, yeah, about this much of plant material that I'm going to put in. And so the butterfly pea, like I said, I love the color of it. That's the reason why I'm doing this. It also has a special quality to it that it extracts initially as blue. And in nature, blue is a very unusual color, meaning it's rare. So that much. Okay. But the thing with butterfly pea is even though it is beautiful, the flavor needs a little bit more enhancement. It's a little bland. So we're going to add mint. Oh, sorry. Mint that I harvested and grew over the summer. So if you do have a garden, learning to dry and to garble, meaning to prepare your herbs for use. I have a video on my Instagram and TikTok. So I added that much butterfly pea and then the mint and some hot water. And so steeping it, this is an infusion. It's just hot water. I'm going to let it steep for 5 to 7 minutes. And you could already see that the color is being extracted. So butterfly pea is water soluble. That's the term, meaning water attracts that molecule. There you go. So now certain plants are not water soluble. They are fat soluble. So you need to extract them with coconut oil, for example, or butter. Another extraction can be through alcohol. So a high proof vodka If you want to infuse it with rosemary, that's a beautiful one, then that you could use that as your base. So we're making our base, and like I said, it's butterfly pea and a little bit of mint to it. And so I'm just going to let it steep. Now, you want to create a strong base. So by letting this steep with a higher percentage of plant material, then it's going to be a little bit stronger. So this is not for drinking as is, it's going to be part of our mocktail. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Okay, so we're going to let that steep. For a decoction, this is part of the plant where it's a little bit hard to extract. So these are your roots, your barks, your stems, your rhizome. And typically, when decocting, it's a 30-minute hard boil. For example, your ginger, your turmeric, these are roots that need to have heat in order for the molecule to separate from the plant. Other ways of extraction is using vinegar. You could make an oxymel. And this is a 3 to 7 days soak. And for those that really don't want to use alcohol, glycerin is an option. It's a vegetable base. Takes about 6 to 7 weeks for the extraction. The thing with glycerin, though, it doesn't extract as much. It can, but it's not as strong as the other methodology. Okay. Now, so like I said, create your own tea blend. So we know plants have several functions. If you're creating your own tea blend, how do you go about doing it? Well, in traditional Chinese medicine, they divide it by percentage. So you have your emperor function, your primary function, then you have your ambassador, your deputies, your assistant, and your envoy. So the envoy, like the last part of that, that is where you want to put in herbs that enhance the overall flavor. That's where you put in your peppermint, your spearmint, anything that is like bright and airy. You don't want to put too much because then it can overpower the entire formulation. The nice thing about this concept is that you could play around with it. So emperor at 50%, you may decide, well, the emperor will need an empress. So you want to divide it into two. So 25%, let's say lemon balm, 25% lemon verbena. So those are your, calming and anti-anxiety herbs. So that is the function of that particular section of the formulation. Okay. 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 So how to make an infused syrup. With a simple syrup, it's very easy. 1 cup sugar, 1 cup water, put it in a pot and turn the heat on, and then stir it occasionally until the sugar is melted and infused into the water. So that's easy. If you want a heavier simple syrup, you just add more sugar to it. And then once you have that, how do you add flavor? So if you want to incorporate a little bit of like lemon balm in it or rosemary, or you want to use your spices, then once everything is combined, you turn off the heat and then you add your botanical material. So once that has cooled down, you'll want to filter the plant material off and then bottle it. Make sure that you label the bottle so that you know when you made it and you know when it's going to expire. Typically, simple syrup would be a month from the time that you made it. So use up those simple syrups as soon as possible. Okay. Now, for those that want an alternative to sugar, because it does spike your glycemic index, some of the sugar alternatives are yacon, stevia, monk fruit, maple syrup, and honey. What I find if I use monk fruit to make a simple syrup is that sometimes it does crystallize. So you want to experiment a little bit. My favorite sugar alternative is actually yacon. So yacon is a South American plant. It is a tube, I believe. And so that one doesn't spike your glycemic index as much, and the taste is really neutral. So as an alternative, as a sugar alternative, yacon is actually my preference. Okay. Now, when it comes to cannabis, to make a cannabis simple syrup, you have to decarb the flower. What does decarbing mean? So when we talk about extracting the molecule out of the plant, with cannabis, you need to cook it a little bit in order to allow the acid to separate. So you want the acid out in order to activate the plant. Once you do that, and I can send instructions on how to decarb cannabis. Once you do that, you grind the flour, and then in a pot, you turn on the heat and you make a simple syrup first. So you combine the sugar and the water, and then you reduce the heat to a simmer, 160 to 180 Fahrenheit. Add the ground up flour, and then you simmer it for 15 minutes, occasionally stirring it, making sure it doesn't burn. And this will help extract the molecule, the CBD, either the CBD or THC molecule from the plant. You may want to add a teaspoon of glycerine because cannabis is attracted more to fat. So that's why an olive oil extract or a butter extract is preferred, or a coconut oil extract is preferred when it comes to cannabis. So, but a simple syrup is butter. So in order to extract that molecule, you'll need to add a little bit of glycerin. And when you make the simple syrup, you'll need to label it with the manufacture date so you know when you made it. Okay, next is mushroom extraction. So a mushroom extract has to be a double extraction. And the reason for that is because you see the mushrooms, the plant cell wall is really hard. And there's certain molecules within the mushroom itself where it's water, it's attracted to water, but it's also, there's other components that are attracted to alcohol. That's why it's a double extract. So you need to do it in 2 stages, and it's very easy. Again, we have a video on our YouTube to do the first stage, which is the alcohol extract. In other words, you just slice or dice all the mushrooms so it's in a smaller, so that you increase the surface space. And then you add the alcohol. You just fill up the container with the mushrooms and the alcohol. 6 weeks later, your tincture, the first stage, is done. And then you do a water extraction. So there you go. That's the mushrooms. Another extract for the mushroom, if you want like a triple extraction, is steam distillation. And that's actually going to extract even further components from the mushroom. But I don't do that because I don't have the equipment at home. So that's why sometimes, companies actually are better in creating medicine because they do have the equipment for it. Okay. So I gave you examples on how to make simple syrup. And that process can actually be applied to so many plant material. So like I said, rosemary, but chamomile can be one. The next part is sour. And the reason I'm talking about sour, because when we talk about harmony in making a mocktail, you want options in terms of the sour component, because it's going to help create that harmony and balance with your mocktail. And some of the samples that we have is vinegar or pickle juice. So anything where there's a sour component to it, your brine being one of them, then that can be part of making your mocktail. Lemon and lime are common. Kumquat is a not as well known, but it is a delicious fruit. Highly, highly recommend. Now, when it comes to garnish, you could combine about, let's say, 2 ounces of salt with a tablespoon of a plant material. It has to be dried in order for you to be able to use it as a garnish. So you combine the salt with a little bit of the plant material, whether it's lavender or your citrus peel or your lime. So you want to make sure that those are dry when you combine it. You could also put it in the oven to heat it up a little bit. But that's a good way of incorporating your garnish. And at the latter part, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the peel of a citrus, like a lemon, in order to make a garnish. So you could also put fruit or edible flowers as part of the garnish. One thing with ice, if you want it to be clear, if you want it to be clear, make sure that you heat the water first and let it cool down. That's actually going to help when the water starts to freeze to be to increase the clarity of it. Okay. The next part is for those that want to make a mocktail. What are the replacements for, your Cointreau, your Framboise, your Grappa? These are just a small list of offerings. You could use orange juice or raspberry juice, grape juice. Now for Kahlua, you could have like a strong coffee with a touch of cocoa. For Burgundy wine, you could use a red wine vinegar. For rum, pineapple juice concentrate. So when you make a concentrate, you just put it in a pot and then just let the liquid evaporate. Sake, you could use rice vinegar, and tequila, you could use like a cactus nectar.